Hey guys, in this video, I want to talk about something super important, actually more important than I think most videos, and that is specific pitfalls in the exterior of your detailing, whenever you're detailing the exterior of a car, that can look like you're not doing a good job if you don't know how to communicate things well. So here I'm detailing the exterior of a Toyota Corolla, and it is white, and it's not detailed on any sort of regular basis, but what I mean by things that can make you look to your customer as if you're not a very good detailer or you're kind of going too fast, missing certain spots, what I mean by that is just like on the interior, there's going to be certain kind of hot spots on the exterior that consistently across every vehicle, even if it's not driven on a daily basis, you're going to have to communicate certain areas to the customer, explaining to them the shortcomings, the pitfalls of those areas that lead to a lot of natural wear and tear and damage, that if you don't communicate that with your customer, you will end up kind of leading yourself down a road of your customer. If they're a little detailed, they have a good eye, and they're a little picky, they will start calling things out, and in my opinion, it's better for you to go ahead and talk about those things rather than wait for them to talk about it or bring it up to you. This is something that has dramatically helped me in my detailing business. And so while we're on the wheels here, let's go ahead and talk about the wheels. When a vehicle is not detailed on any sort of regular basis, and of course I find out that information when I'm talking with my customer on the phone on the front end, the wheels are always going to be an issue just because that inner barrel problem, right? Brake dust is corrosive, and so it is going to end up eating into the clear coat if it's not cleaned off at a high level. And this is something that I always like to communicate with my customer. It's also an area that many customers aren't aware of, meaning the inner barrel of the wheel. And so there's a couple things to say about this. In the detailing world, there is a time to not go into too much detail and not overcomplicate things with your customer, especially when they're not even aware that things exist. For example, for me to go into detail about the nature of the inner barrel of the wheel and how brake dust ends up corroding through the clear coat, eating into the metal and kind of ruining that inner part, when my customer is not even thinking about the inner part, they've never even taken their eyes down in that area, like they've never even thought about that area of the car, that can be a level of over communication that you're going to complicate things that need not be complicated and probably hinder the sale of the job itself. So this is a balancing act for sure, but it is an extremely important thing when you're communicating with your customer, probably the most important thing, simply because if you don't make your customer aware of the areas that are very prone to damage from average wear and tear that have nothing to do with you, you do at some level leave yourself vulnerable to certain criticisms or oversights from the customer where they're thinking, hey, this guy sped up, he didn't really do a very good job. And when you communicate the things like the inner barrel of the wheel, for example, in some senses, when they are not even concerned about that area, it does build a level of trust between you and your customer, in my experience, because I take it upon myself to make sure that I explain these things in full detail to them. And so they feel like they're being told, they're interacting with somebody who's very honest. And so I compare it to, when my wife and I just bought a new house, and we're going to rent it out in just a couple years, and so we had to fix a couple things on it to make it good for renters. And one of these things that had to be fixed was a mold problem. We live in Tennessee, and mold is just an issue in Tennessee all the time. Like, you just can't get around it. It's something you just have to fix. But when the mold guy comes and says, hey, this is going to be X amount of dollars, I am really at the mercy of what he tells me it is going to cost because of the nature of the beast, because I don't understand mold. But when he takes the time to explain the process, explain the nature of mold to me, it puts me at ease a lot, because I feel like I'm dealing with somebody honest, and I have a certain level of information to operate off of that sets my expectation. This is the exact same thing I'm talking about here. Now, on top of that, to add just a little bit of more contextualized information just to this specific scenario, this particular Corolla, this has got the sports wheels on it. This is like one of the, it's not the base model of the Corolla. I think this is a 2016. It's a couple, it's got a couple bells and whistles, and it came with these sports wheels. A lot of times these quote-unquote sports wheels, they do them on the Toyotas and Hondas especially. They're, obviously coated in that factory clear coat, but they're kind of particularly shiny might be a good way to describe it. They got a little gloss to them. They're not your classic just kind of like metal alloy wheel. They again are kind of meant to make the car pop. This in some ways actually makes them more difficult to detail when you run into them. I'm using Meguiar's wheel brightener and acidic cleaner here because on this type of wheel, it is going to show all the dirt that you miss, and wheels are one of those areas where it is really easy to miss certain areas and you don't see it until it's dried out again. A lot of times that area is going to be where those spokes meet in the center and at the end, those corner pieces. That is hard to detail out really to perfection because you can't see it very well when it's wet. It's kind of like looking at a car's paint in the shade. You can't really see all those imperfections. Same way with the wheel. Until it dries, you really don't get a good idea of exactly what kind of cleaning you did. Having said that, I prefer using acidic wheel cleaners on a wheel like this because it does tend to kind of compensate for that error because the wheel brightener, the acidic cleaner, is so powerful. So all of that being said, one of the other things that you're going to notice with your customers is that when they're particularly, say, observant, they are going to notice imperfections after you finish detailing. This includes on the wheels. I cannot tell you the amount of times I have finished detailing a car and they look at their wheels and they see these areas where they have curb rash and they're like, wow, that looks really bad. And it's like, yeah, it does. But that was actually there before I ever showed up. The reason you didn't notice it is because not only were the wheels dirty and the tires dirty and the wheel wells dirty, but the entire car was dirty. And when you have this entire thing clean, everything seems more pronounced. And so this is another area that I voice to my customer over the phone before I ever show up. Listen. When I get finished, you are going to notice these imperfections, even something as simple as curb rash that you already know is on your wheel because you remember scraping the curb. I make sure I verbally say out loud all of these things so that nothing is left kind of vulnerable or untouched. One of the areas with a white car specifically, because I'm detailing a white car here, that you're also going to notice, particularly behind the tires and the wheels, those rocker panels, is that when tar and, let's just say everything from the road, but particularly tar kicks up onto those areas and it's not taken care of in a timely manner, meaning it's not stripped and cleaned in a timely manner and protected, that black tar will end up staining the white paint. And in some sense, it can also corrode through the clear coat. Now, of course, the impact of the tar is going to more or less kind of chip away the clear coat. But when it sits there over and over and over again in the hot sun every day, that is going to start to degrade that area of the paint, and you find this kind of staining phenomenon happening. This is something I voice to customers when I'm dealing with a white car. While this might sound a little like I'm over-communicating, this is me over-communicating to you guys so that you can leave to your discretion that which needs to be talked about in the specific situation you're in with your customer at any given time. So there are going to be times where you read your customer's kind of just voice over the phone and you say, listen, I really don't need to talk about this kind of stuff because I can tell this person is very reasonable and it's not going to take a lot of convincing for them to understand what the limitations are to the detailing process. But that being said, that is a judgment you have to make over time, and I think it's a judgment a lot of people make very wrongly. Now, the other thing I will say about these wheels is that because they're the quote-unquote sport wheel and they're not just your classic little alloy wheel that doesn't really show many imperfections, this will show scratches. And so even as I'm using the Speedmaster here, because there's no other way to get inside this wheel without taking it off, these wheels are extremely easy to scratch, even with a brush like this. And so I know that might sound kind of counterintuitive. It's like, well, then why are you using it? Well, because number one, the wheels are already really, really scratched because just driving and them going through automatic car washes. But number two, I have to clean the inner barrel of the wheel here because, well, it can be cleaned. And so it needs to be done because this is just part of the detailing process. But there is a certain level of scratching that you are going to see even after you wax this wheel and it's totally finished, and it's going to be a little bit bothersome. Now, this is just a really quick tip for an area like this, just something that I've picked up in my experience of the last 10 years detailing. When you're dealing with wheels like this, particularly dark colored wheels, and they're a little scratched up when you get finished with them and you see them dry a little bit, they also look a little bit bad because you can see some of those water spots. Not only will this remove the water spots, but it'll also make those scratches look a little bit better. Carnauba paste wax ends up going a really long way with this. Also, Meguiar's Ultimate Paste Wax, which is a synthetic wax, does very well as well. Now, I'm going to be using Renegade's Detailer Series Sudstorm. This is like the Sud soap that I'm using nowadays because it's so versatile. I can use it in my foam cannon and I can use it in my agitation wash. So I just like simplifying my world. That's really why I use this product. It's also just a really good product. But here you guys see I'm taking my magic eraser and I'm taking off the little scratches that you find behind the door handle of the car, because these door handle scratches are formed basically by people reaching their hand to grab the handle to open the door, and over time just lightly scratching their fingernails on the backs of this area here. And over time it piles up. And basically, you get this whole web of really dark scratches behind the handles. This is an area that's so easy to fix for me. I just include it as a part of the detail because it just makes sense. It takes no time at all. And when you're dealing with white paint, just like when you're dealing with black paint, there are certain areas that have to be adjusted with your detailing process and things that have to change just a tad in order to appropriately address the situation, because it's just not quite apples to apples. Now, of course, I'm going to go ahead and just soak everything and knock any of the surface dirt off that I can before I put my foam cannon onto the vehicle. But you guys can see the foam looks really good. Just as a side note, the foam looks really fantastic from the Sudstorm soap that I'm using here. And by the way, guys, if you like this kind of information, smash the like button below this video, because it does help this video rank in the YouTube algorithm so that more detailers who might be starting their business or just might be in the middle of their business and they just need some quick tips on a certain areas of the car, it helps them get this information too. So because all this is free and it costs nothing to watch this, you can help me out by helping this video get out to more people who might need this information so they don't have to keep learning from their own trial and error. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and foam the entire car, rinse that off, and then we're going to move to the agitation wash, of course. And one of the things you're going to note that I'm going to be using here is a product called Optimum Tar Remover. I believe it's just their tar remover. It's just an orange chemical that comes in like a 32-ounce bottle. You can buy the gallon of it as well, I believe. A tar remover, and particularly a good tar remover, is something that I think is very important to keep on hand. The reason I use it by Optimum is because Optimum products are one of those things that just like puts me at peace of mind. I know Optimum they create incredible products. They really strip out any of the additives that don't need to be there that potentially could harm certain cars in certain situations. So this is the product I'm spraying all over the front grille here, and I'm going to be spraying it on some of the bird poop on different parts of the car, and I'm going to be opening up the gas, what am I trying to say? What the heck? I can't think of the word. The gas cap. And I'm going to be putting it in there and just scrubbing it with a detail brush. One of the things I'm doing here that you saw is I'm spraying the tar remover basically wherever there is a crease in this vehicle. So you guys know that like on these Toyota Corollas, they do it on Toyota Camrys as well when they're manufacturing these cars these days. They'll put this little like strip of paneling on each door because it adds like a little accent to the car, and I think it's just for visual appeal. It looks kind of cool. The problem is it's kind of like a badge on a car, or it's kind of like a decal. Over time, this dirt just collects in that little crease where that panel sits, that little strip sits, and it just looks terrible, especially on a white car. If it was a black car, I might not have to deal with it, but you can see it so pronounced, so predominantly on a white car that I'm going to take my detailing brush and scrub that Optimum Tar Remover after I let it sit and degrade it for just a little bit. Scrub all that Optimum Tar Remover in those creases all over the car to pull out that black dirt. One of the other things that you're going to not see in the camera because it's just the camera didn't pick it up, but this white car sits under trees a lot because the owner lives at an apartment complex. And this is not a maintenance client, by the way, but it is in fairly good condition just for an average detail. Because they sit under trees, you end up getting that kind of black, powdery, sappy material that falls off of the leaves and the branches as the car is sitting under there. And when the car is not detailed regularly, again, it sticks to the paint like white on rice. Like, it's unbelievably difficult to get off. So luckily it hasn't been sitting there too long. So this will come off. The majority of it is coming off in the wash, but this is another area that I talk with my customer. In certain instances, that can degrade into the clear coat, cause damage that you will end up seeing more predominantly when I am finished. Now, the other thing here, obviously, with the gas cap is this is just a good additive to add whenever you're detailing, because particularly with a white car like this, what ends up happening is you wash the entire car with foam and agitation wash, and you're pressure washing it, and if you don't get that gas cap really clean, water will continue to drip out of it down the white paint, and that water picks up all that dirt and grime that's on the inside of the gas cap, and it'll bring it with it. And so you just have these black streaks below the gas cap where all of that water was just sinking down the paint, and it ends up just looking really bad. But this is also just a good little add thing that is going to take no time for you to do for your customer, and it's very simple to do. Again, that Optimum tar remover and even just some degreaser and a detailing brush will get that done with no problem whatsoever. Now, one of the problems that you might be running into, especially in the summertime, is you're like, Luke, how do I avoid getting water spots on the car when I'm detailing because I'm in the direct sun? Well, first of all, let me try to address this like in a simple way. Where you're going to experience water spots the most, and this is probably even more true with a white vehicle, is the glass. And so I'm assuming when you're asking that question, your biggest area of contention with water spots is the windshield, maybe the side windows. The glass is going to be the most difficult to deal with. The simple answer to your question is speed up your washing process, because even though you will inevitably get some water spots on the windows, if you can speed up a little bit, those water spots will be so surface level that you're not going to have to take any great measure to remove them when it's time. In a lot of cases, even a spray wax or whatever finisher you're going to use on the windows will do it. But if you clay the windows like I do pretty much on every single car to prepare them, that clay bar ought to take that off as well. I will say, Renegade has a water spot remover that works really, really fantastically on pretty much any area of the car, especially chrome. I've used it a lot on different chrome pieces because that's where a lot of water spots accrue that end up becoming really visually obvious as well. But that water spot remover can be a really great product for you. On top of that, if you're dealing with water spots on the paint, do not do this on the glass. Let me repeat myself. Do not do this on the glass. But if you're dealing with heavy water spots on the paint from your detailing process, Meguiar's Wheel Brightener diluted 5 or 6 to 1 will take water spots off of the paint and chrome, and it will not hurt anything, okay? It's not going to damage anything whatsoever. But do not get it on the glass. Not that it's going to hurt it the first time, because I have experimented with it a little bit, but Meguiar's Wheel Brightener will etch into glass, so do not use it on the glass ever. Now, all of that being said, partly in my agitation wash, what I'm doing here to knock out 2 birds with 1 stone is I let that Optimum tar remover sit on some of those bottom rocker panels. I do this often with white vehicles because it's just so necessary to get that tar off, especially on those parts of the paint behind the wheel. So after I do my foam wash and before I do my agitation wash like I did here, I just take that tar remover, I spray it on those areas, I let it sit, and even though it'll dry a little bit in the sun, it will come off no problem when I bring my soapy solution down to or around the car, and it's going to work just as effectively even if it's just a little dry from the sun on the paint. This way, I don't have to do this entire post-wash process where I'm trying to get all of this tar off of the paint. I can kind of do it at the same time, and it ends up being really effective when you have a great product like the tar remover and the soap solution that I'm using. It just works very well together. Now that we're at the grill of the car, the front of the car, this is an important area to communicate with your customer. It's one of those areas that I never, no matter who I'm talking to or what the situation is, I never don't talk about this area. And here's how I go about it. First of all, the reason that I do this, the reason that you need to communicate this is because every single vehicle that is driven on any sort of regular basis, and even those that are not driven on what we would probably consider a super regular basis, they will have issues with the front grille, or the front, I keep saying front grille, the grille, but also just the front of the car, because there's going to be a ton of rock chips, a ton of bug etchings. The person probably has scraped something a time or two, especially if it's a daily driver, and that is something I always communicate with my customer. This is an area that is very damaged on every car, and it has nothing to do with me, nor does it have to do with any sort of oversight. Expect this to be damaged, expect bug etchings, expect water spots, expect stainings, expect water spot etchings is what I mean, expect rock chips, all of that sort of stuff. Just make them aware of that, set the expectation. Now, what I'm doing here is using the Stoner glass polish that is their glass stripper that I'm going to use before I put on this rain repellent coating from Stoner as well. I've shown this product in a couple videos beforehand. The reason I'm using it here, and this goes hand in hand with what I'm talking about here as far as communicating with the customer. When you detail a car, if you've started a detailing business or if you detail your own car and you drive your car on a daily basis, or if you've detailed a few cars, you're going to notice this pattern. On the windshield, there's going to be what I call a freckling effect, where it looks like you took like a bucket of tiny, 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 tiny pebbles and you just chucked it at the windshield, and it just goes and it just sprays the windshield. And what ends up happening is even after you clay bar it and after you strip it totally, there's just these tiny little dots of imperfection where basically when you're driving on the interstate or driving on the road and you get behind, say, like a dump truck, and the dump truck hits a little bit of a bump, a little bit of that sand or that gravel spills out of the top, and you're going 80 miles an hour and you can hear it spray your windshield. It's things like that that cause this to happen. The reason I'm taking this polish to the paint is because Stoner created this really awesome polish that, and by the way, this video is not sponsored by anyone or anything like that. I'm just telling you the products that I really like to use. This product ends up really taking care of a lot of the imperfections and the water spots and the bug etchings, so the glass comes out so beautifully, and you're going to see it at the end of this video. I mean, it really comes out just top notch. And so I'm going ahead and clay barring the car right now. By the way, I'm going to clay the roof, the windows, and all of that stuff. But to sit on this point for just a moment, number one, it's going to make the glass come out so beautifully. I mean, it's just going to look so much better. But number two, it doesn't take a lot of time for me to do this. So this is just a quick little add-on that I'm going to do just for no extra charge, just because it's going to make, me look like a better detailer. I mean, the glass is going to look better. It's a win-win for everybody. And then number three, when you can polish something like this by hand, and you can do it quickly, it's like no time to you, but it also makes the product that you're going to apply to the glass last far longer. For whatever reason, I don't know why this hasn't become a big conversation in the detailing world yet, but we all talk about the durability of certain products, and this product is durable and this product is not. The biggest variable to the durability of a product, whether you're putting on the glass or on the paint, is the surface of the paint or the glass that you're applying it to. When you polish a surface, it is going to like 10x the lifespan of any product you put onto it. I don't know why we don't talk about this variable more. It's like the most important thing that goes into it. But that being said, guys, those are some of the main areas that I communicate with the customer, because when you get done, you will find that the customer will notice certain things, and it's something you want to make sure that you are bringing up before them. Now, guys, stick around to the end of the video so that you can see the ending. By the way, I am using Optimum No Rinse Solution as my clay bar lubricant. I'm using a waffle weave towel that I love. I'll hook up all this stuff in the YouTube description box below to dry the car. And then, of course, I'm going to be using Meguiar's Synthetic Express Spray Wax to finish this paint. For whatever reason, I just wanted to use that product today, and that fell into the price point of the detail that we're doing here, and so it just made sense. It's one of those products that I just never, ever, 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 ever will leave. It needs to stay in my arsenal. So, guys, if you want to see the products or the tools used in this video, as always, I hook up links to Amazon and other websites that I get these from, so you can use those links below if you want to get these products. Yes, they are affiliate links. Secondly, if you're not yet subscribed to the Wilson Auto Detailing channel, but you like the information that you're getting and it's helping you, then hit the subscribe button below this video and tap the bell icon so that you get notified when I publish any future videos. In just a second, you guys are going to get to see the finished result, but as always, from Luke here at Wilson Auto Detailing, guys, keep working hard. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.